Right now, children are scrolling through their feeds. They are digital playgrounds, but what may look like a gaming forum, a private group chat, or a series of harmless memes could be, in fact, something far darker. Behind the avatars and anonymous handles, there are sinister voices waiting. Patient, persuasive, and dangerous. This is the new frontline of radicalisation. And it's not happening in secret training camps or faraway battlefields, but in bedrooms and classrooms. In this special episode, we've been given exclusive access to counter-terrorism policing. They've arrested dozens and dozens of children in the past year for planning terror attacks. So how are they being radicalised? And who is doing the radicalising? Welcome to the Crime Agents. Hello and welcome to the Crime Agents with me, crime journalist Andy Hughes.
And me, the ex-cop, and this is for you, Paul, listening at home, the plodcaster, Neil Bassel.
Oh, is that what they're calling you now, is it?
It is.
I like it. Make sure you're listening to our feed on Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And remember, you can watch our full episodes on YouTube as well. Every now and then, you come across a story as a journalist that you think can't be real. In the last year, 43 children have been arrested by counter-terrorism police. That's a rate of nearly one a week and is the highest number of child arrests for terror offences on record. And when you look at the detail, it just gets worse. Extremist networks are adapting, creating content designed to attract young people, win their trust, and slowly draw them into radical ideologies. Kids as young as 11 and 12 are being arrested for planning terror attacks on British soil. So how does it work? Well, they're being groomed on social media platforms like Snapchat and TikTok. And once they've got their hooks into them, they move them across to encrypted radical chat rooms on apps like Telegram. So after weeks of negotiation, counter-terrorism police agreed to an exclusive interview to discuss their caseload. What usually happens is that a senior officer is put up for the interview, but that didn't happen this time. It's extremely rare to get any access like this, but it's unheard of to speak to an undercover officer who is at the heart of this work. It's the first time any officer like this has spoken to the media. Here's what happened. Well, welcome to New Scotland Yard, the most famous building in policing. A couple of months ago, I got a tip-off that young boys were being arrested in their dozens for planning terror attacks. Since then, I've been negotiating with counter-terror police here, asking them for an interview. Finally, after months and months of asking, they're inviting us in, and we're about to interview a undercover secretive operative, and we're about to get an insight into a very dark world. People like this never speak. Josh, we're going to call you. Obviously, we can't identify you because of the work you do. Could you just explain a bit of the work that you do?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm an intelligence officer. I work in a national unit here at counter-terrorism policing headquarters. And we monitor the extreme right-wing terrorism threat and make sure that we are fit for purpose in terms of our response.
And where are we at today? Because, we're seeing... the country's in a really delicate place at the minute. You're seeing protests all over the country. What does that mean for you in counter-terrorism policing?
So the protest element is not something we deal with in counter-terrorism policing. I've worked in counter-terrorism policing now for a long time, and I've seen that transition as the threats changed. The challenge we face now is primarily online, increasingly with children. Sadly, 1 in 5 people that we arrest for terrorism is a child.
It's extraordinary, that.
And that's the reason why we're taking part in these interviews at the moment, because we're trying to raise awareness. We've seen an increasing significant presence of children in our casework, and that's ideally what we want to stop. And that's all linked to the prevalence of extremist content on the internet, and the ease with which that people can get hold of it.
Just talk about some of the cases. How old are we talking?
So we've seen children as young as 11 and 12 in our casework. Like I say, 1 in 5. So numbers-wise, in 2023, we arrested 42 under 17-year-olds.
Right.
And our colleagues in MI5 recently released figures that said that 13% of their investigations consist of those under age of 18. And that's not where any of us have joined policing.
No.
especially not in counter-terrorism policing. And that's why it's so important that we talk about it and raise awareness.
And how are these kids being drawn in to this extremism?
It's incredibly easy. So we were just talking earlier on, weren't we? And I was showing you some of the footage. An individual can quite easily set up a social media account and be bombarded with rhetoric that exploits pre-existing grievances and provides an opportunity, or almost an excuse. We see conspiracy theories playing a big part in that.
Right.
Conspiracy theories, in the simplest terms, provide a really simple solution to a really complex issue, and it provides like an outlet or an excuse or a subject that's causing that individual's grievances, and that's what we see. We see extremists playing on those grievances and then drawing those individuals through that way.
Right, and I kind of presumed that it would all be done over the dark web, but it's not that, is it? It's just normal social media.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, propaganda will only be successful if it's easily accessible.
Right.
And so we'll see different levels. We will see tamed down versions of that will be on mainstream social media sites, and then what they actually act as is a link back to Telegram chats, other more secure means of speaking to one another, and that's where the more extreme content is then shared.
And what about the parents of these kids? Do they know anything about this?
It's really difficult. A number of parents that we will turn up at their address, it's the first time they've ever heard of it. Really? And I massively sympathise. I'm a father myself, 3 children. It's really difficult, and I'm really technically savvy. I've worked in this space for a long time. Yeah. But even I would struggle with some of the new technological advancements. And that's why we're really trying to signpost the parents. There's a website called internetmatters.org. Fantastic resource. We'll have step-by-step guides about how to bring in parental controls. But more than that, it will go on to talk about how to have conversations with children, how we can have an open and frank conversation about, one, what are they doing if they see things that are concerning on the internet? How would they react if they saw some things? And our comms team have been brilliant in putting out lots of publications. So if you visit our Instagram account at the moment, there's lots of content about that, how we can signpost parents to get the help they need.
This kind of reminds me of, did you ever watch Adolescence, that show?
Do you know what? I haven't.
You haven't?
Embarrassingly, it seems a bit.
You're
like
the one person.
It's a bit like it's too close to home. It's work.
I suppose, because obviously that's all about this kid who just gets drawn into this world, and his parents don't have a clue about what's going on. This is very similar.
Absolutely, yeah. Every one of my colleagues that have watched it, I feel like I have watched it because of the amount of people that have told me the content, so I almost haven't had to go through and watch it. But yeah, everything that we've seen from the output from that series, it's been brilliant for us because it highlights a concern that we face. And exactly that. If it will raise awareness, then it's a brilliant thing.
And just on a human level, it must be difficult when you knock on these doors. You see the faces of the parents, and that penny drops that their child is not only going in looking at stuff they shouldn't. We're talking about serious crime. We're talking about terrorism.
Yeah, and the content is absolutely vile.
Could you describe a bit of the content just to give us a flavour of what you're saying? I mean, are we talking bomb manuals? Are we talking planning terror attacks? What we're talking?
If you name it and you'll see it.
Oh, really?
Worryingly, more increasingly, it's just sheer violence.
Right.
And sexual violence as well.
Right.
Mixed in with that. There are bad actors out there that try to subvert some of these scenes to make it even more extreme, even more nihilistic, and that's where we see this blend of extreme gore content, extreme sexual violence and self-harm, all kind of mixed into one nihilistic output.
And where's all this coming from? Who is responsible for pumping this out?
Really difficult to say.
Is it?
Yeah. There are...
They cover their tracks well.
Absolutely, yeah. There are sadistically horrible people out there that clearly enjoy. We described a group called Telegram Collective only very recently. We're the first country to do so, and that group perfectly depicts what the threat we're facing.
And where are they based?
So that was transnational,
okay.
and that's the challenge we have now.
Right.
Is the vast majority of these groups are transnational, which means we have to work very closely with our colleagues in the Five Eyes community to disrupt them. What that group did is very few of the actual individuals that were in the centre, the nexus that were driving the threat, were actually carrying out any offences themselves. What they actually prefer is to encourage other people, give other people the resources, poke other individuals, exacerbate their grievances, and encourage those to go out and carry out an attack. We see a thing called sainthood, where you can actually enter the sainthood of extreme right-wing terrorists.
Right.
And this is where they venerate individuals that have successfully carried out attacks based on their extreme right-wing ideology.
One of the main messages from counter-terror policing has been one of the fastest growing threats is from foreign states like Russia and China. Presumably this is the type of stuff they're doing.
I wouldn't. It's not my area of expertise. What I would say is I think it would obviously clearly be in the interest of our adversities to divide. Dividing our communities would undermine the national security threat. So whilst I can't comment on behalf of counter-terrorism policing on that matter, I would not be surprised.
Okay. Could I see some of the content?
Absolutely, yeah. The material, like we said there, that can be available on the open web. This is not secret. This is.
So anyone can see this.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll play a video. I'll mute it because the sound is not great. Well, what this video shows is that it plays on attracting individuals' sense of belonging. That's one of the main things that we see within their grievance. We've got disenfranchised individuals that don't feel like they belong in society for a number of reasons.
And talk us through the language that's being used.
So this video here is telling people that you can do more, you can achieve, you can be someone. But not only that, is that we will act as a guide. We will teach you. It goes on to say that you can become part of the brotherhood.
Right.
You can finally belong and be with someone. You can make a difference.
Right.
But all you need to do is take these simple steps.
Right.
This is not a complex having to go and scarily meet a guy in a pub somewhere in a dark room and expose yourselves and potentially be identified. You can privately join us in that chat room. We can provide you with all the material that you need. We'll make it seem secretive, but also that you've joined a private group. You have to be vetted. Like, not everyone can do this.
It seems to me that this is kind of grooming 101, right? This happens in every kind of level of
Absolutely,
grooming, but this is just on a really extreme scale.
Yeah, and this is like you just said there. This is not just in the extreme right wing space. This will be mirrored in the Islamist threat as well.
Yeah.
And then the more concerning areas that I touched on a minute ago was there around that sainthood. So what we will see is we'll see lots and lots of content on the internet that will depict people like Dylan Ruth, who committed the Charleston church attack. There'll be lots and lots of videos that will depict that individual as being a successful individual.
Painting these as heroes.
Absolutely.
These terrorists as heroes.
Yeah, and you can be that. And you can receive that same level.
You can be that as famous as this guy.
Exactly that, yeah.
Could I have a look a bit more?
Yeah, of course. So this here is linked to that group that we spoke about earlier on, Telegram Collective.
Yeah.
This was a publication that they created in 2021. And what they said here is they wrote a monologue, a story, a fictitious attack, and that resulted in an individual that murdered several police officers, took his own life, along with lots of individuals that he shot. And then they depicted him in a fictitious newspaper headline here. And what the publication said is that your face here, if you can go on and replicate this, we will make you famous. And that's exactly what happened in 2022.
Right.
There was an attack at an LGBT bar there, and a guy called Krajic, he wrote in his manifesto that he was inspired by the Telegram Collective, and then the very next day they produced the exact same article, but changed it all and showed him as being that hero. Okay. And that shows a direct correlation between a piece of propaganda and then a real world attack, and then sadly a loss of life.
And just what if that other video that you said you were...
So this other video here is very typical of what we see. This is sort of a mishmash, very much aimed at a young generation.
Well, you can see that. You can not only see it in the language, but you can see it in the production in a way. It's kind of...
Very much so.
Yeah.
So this is just a mishmash of activist activity, violence.
You see Hitler there, AK-47s, ISIS. Yeah.
And drawing back to an age that is venerated. They will look back at they'll look back at the Nazi Party of the 1930s, and that's ultimately what they crave.
Burning of the Israeli flag there. So this is just on places like TikTok and
Yeah.
Snapchat.
Yeah, exactly that.
Really? I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? And this is probably going to terrify parents, this. And hopefully, maybe be a wake-up call for them, which I'm presuming is what you want, which is why you're doing this interview.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to alarm people, but at the same time, we do want parents to pay a more
Well,
active
sometimes
interest.
you need a shock to get the message across. So these kids, I mean, this is a really complex issue, isn't it, when children are involved? Are they treated like terrorists, suspects, or are they treated like victims?
Bit of both.
Right.
So we when we arrest someone, when we arrest them for a terrorist offence, they are treated as terrorists. Obviously, there'll be extra safeguards in place because they're a child, but the impact of that arrest that it will have on their future careers, their job opportunities, the impact it's going to have on that family and the wider community they come from is going to be huge, and that's why we want to avoid it. A lot of the offences that they're committing are involving digital media that's downloaded off the internet and shared. So that's why we are wanting to be. That's why we want to increase parents to be more intrusive about their online spaces.
Yeah. It must be difficult though for you guys to keep on top of this, because since it seems so rife and it's so open and easily available to kids, how on earth do you keep on top of all this?
We've got a great unit within counter-terrorism policing called the counter-terrorism internet referral unit,
Sure.
which they will assess publications. They will receive public referrals. On the Home Office website, there is a button where the general public can report something. So that's a call to the general public as well, and the journalist community. That the only way that we can combat this is by taking that material down, which is why we've got a dedicated team that will assess that material and will then call upon those social media companies to take that down.
What do the parents say to you when, that you come knocking?
It's really different. Really difficult, because I don't think there's one typical family. You touched on earlier on there around the fact that a lot of the parents won't know, and I think that's probably the most common thing.
Yeah.
Is that how would I have known? I thought that my son or daughter was just doing homework.
Yeah.
I didn't realise this stuff was so easily accessible, and that's why I really sympathise with parents that don't understand technology, and which is why we're so keen to give them the tools they can to enable them to be able to monitor what their children are doing online.
Do you think this is something that the education system can help with?
It's really difficult. I think we definitely need to work closely in hand with the Department of Education, but I'm also very conscious that the Department of Education have also got a lot of responsibility
of
here.
course, yeah.
This is a much wider societal
Yeah.
problem. It's a combination between ourselves in policing, our government and regulations. With the Online Safety Act coming through and Ofcom being the regulator for that, it's going to need all of us to work together to try and reduce this harm.
And the children that are being arrested, is it all extreme far right wing terrorism, or is it Islamist terrorism as well?
We see a mixture. There was a period not long ago, and this data has been made available. At one point, we were seeing primarily extreme right wing. I think this peaked at around 2019, 2020, where I think nearly all bar one were for extreme right wing. Now we see a much more of an even split.
What are these proxies? If you could talk a bit about the proxies that you mentioned before, what are they? What is the role of a proxy? What are they hoping to achieve? Presumably, they just want to inspire someone to commit a terror attack. This is a kid. They're impressionable. They're probably the most vulnerable, so I'm going to target them. Is that what they're doing?
I think if we're talking proxies as in individuals online that are trying to radicalise others.
Yeah.
We've had a case not too long ago where an individual was linked to a terrorist group. He was a huge propagandist. He was creating content that was celebrated internationally as being really, really top level. I'm aware of where he was visiting prison once they identified that his propaganda directly led to a terrorist attack that occurred overseas. And what I've asked the investigator, like, what was his reaction? And there seemed to be a disconnect between them pushing out that propaganda and that material and then having a real world effect in the real world. There's still that misunderstanding of, like, there are consequences to the material you put online, that what you inspired someone to go over. I think it's really difficult to say. I wouldn't want to give like any sort of overarching sort of assessment, because I think so many different people can be motivated by different things.
And presumably AI is making it easier for these people to create this propaganda.
It's definitely...
I mean, some of that stuff there, that may have been created by AI.
Could quite possibly. It's definitely lowering the barrier to entry. It means that it's another tool that a propagandist can have in their toolkit to be able to create that content. The only thing I'd say is that this space is very competitive, and there would be comments made by the people that this is cheap, that you haven't created, it's not original content. We see that in other extreme spaces, so I imagine that we'd see that same approach. But will it make it easier? Absolutely.
Could you give me a flavour of a really shocking case that has, not only affected you, but obviously affected the family, and just to give people an idea about actually what's actually going on?
I think there was a case in 2022 where a group of individuals up in the northeast, spread pretty much across the country, but there was a nexus within the counter-terrorism police in the northeast region. Those individuals were in a Telegram group. They were communicating, pumping out extremist narratives, talking about potential attack plan, etc. When they carried out the executive action on that address, or police jargon, but when they carried out the arrest of those individuals and carried out the warrant, they found a 3D printed firearm in the middle of being constructed at that address. Now, I think that is the concern. We thankfully in the UK have a very strong licensing laws, and we don't see the same levels that we see internationally, but that's just an example of what if.
I spoke to an expert in intelligence yesterday about a different story, actually, about a story about guns and these blank guns that are being imported into the country and then being converted into deadly weapons. And they're saying that there are more and more coming in, and this is a real worry. I mean, I suppose for you that's another concern, that these easily accessible firearms that can be converted could find their hands into a child.
Yeah, and that's why within counter-terrorism policing we have a great relationship with our colleagues in the NCA, and we have a joint-up team to counter that threat, and that covers everything from converted firearms all the way through to 3D printed firearms and countering that threat.
And where are we now? Do extreme far right terrorists? Is it how do you call them? Extreme.
We refer to them as extreme right-wing terrorists.
Do extreme right-wing terrorists? I know for a fact that they use whatever's going on in the world to drum up, activity and support, and try and inspire people. Are they using recent events such as the Epping Hotel protests and the asylum seeker issue that we've got going on in this in this country? Are they using that?
All extremists, both on the Islamist side of the threat picture and the extreme right wing, one of the main things they will do is exploit grievances that are held already for their own benefit, and so that's no different with this area.
Yeah, I'll take that as a yes. So, are you a parent?
I am. Yeah.
What do you think about the role of social media companies in all this? Because this is where all this extremist material is being pumped out. Do you think they can be doing more as a parent? Not speaking as a police officer.
Yeah, I'll make that clear that this is me as a father speaking, not as a counter-terrorism police officer. But yes, I'm incredibly strict with my children for a reason, by not allowing them to have social media, because I see the negative impact it has, not just with terrorism and extremism, but for all of the other ills that social media that brings in to individuals that yet haven't formed maturity yet to be able to understand what they're seeing. So yes, 100% would I like content to be removed more often. Yeah, but that's me as a parent.
No, I get that. Just give us an idea of the amount of material that you are taking down and identifying. I mean, just say every month. Are we talking tens, hundreds, thousands?
We're talking thousands. And that's probably only a snapshot, because we're massively reliant on public referrals and what we identify in policing. But is that a true reflection of how much content's out there? Absolutely not.
Okay. You mentioned the case in the northeast there, that it's happening quite a lot in the north of England.
No, I think that gets skewed.
Does it?
Yeah, because without going too much detail about how the counter-terrorism network is set up, we have buddy units.
Yeah.
So the east of England, the north east of England will cover the East Midlands.
Sure.
So therefore, it will sometimes appear that the
northeast
northeast will be investigating it, but that could be an event that took place in Derbyshire or Lincolnshire.
Sure. Right. Why do you think that children are susceptible to this?
I don't think they've yet got the maturity to be able to question. One of the things that, again, as a father, what I've tried to install in my children is critical thinking. I think there's a massive absence of that, of not questioning the material that you're reading. We've got a huge issue where primarily young boys feel like they're under attack. There is that male toxicity thing that's sort of pumped through the media. And so a lot of these youngsters will seek to try and find answers to some of those. And there's not many people talking about that in the mainstream. So that's where our extremists will exploit those.
Do you think influencers like Andrew Tate, you mentioned male toxicity, do you think they don't help the situation?
Personally, in the casework I've seen is that I've not seen Andrew Tate as someone within the extreme right-wing community.
Sure.
I think Andrew Tate is more of a symptom of the problem as opposed to being a catalyst for causing it.
Interesting. Josh, thanks so much for speaking to us.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Well, what do you make of that, Neil?
Josh is interesting because when he said he's obviously worked in CT a long time.
Yeah.
So effectively, Josh at one point worked for me.
Yeah.
And when you said, we do normally put up a senior officer, that senior officer would normally have been me, my deputy, or the head of the London counter-terrorism unit that runs the sort of undercover online where Josh comes from. There is no way 4 years ago when I was doing that job, I would have allowed one of those officers in front of you. Yeah. Not just you specifically, Andy, but basically a journalist. And that would have been very carefully controlled. And probably we wouldn't have been talking about something we were only just starting to increase our investment and resource in. Sure. We needed more people like Josh. We were putting more money into that at the time. It was a bit of a secret thing. I mean, to do something like that means there's got to be a reason why counter-terrorism policing wanted to do that. And when you listen to that interview, you just understand how bad this has become. Yeah, you can see why, can't you? Listen, let's take a break there and then let's go into it in more detail after this. Welcome back. Right, let's go into more detail there, Neil. As you've said, it's pretty extraordinary to hear from an officer like this. I imagine, given that you were head of counter-terrorism a few years ago, I don't want to keep going on about your age and seniority. Of course you do. How different? I'm assuming you never saw anything like this that they were talking about. Oh no, we did. This is. Oh, really? No, we did. We were beginning to see. There were two things. Not the numbers, though. Not these kind of numbers. No. I remember listening to my old mate Ken McCallum doing his annual statement. Who's Director General of MI5, and he was talking about. I think it's 13%, 13% of all terrorism arrests in the last calendar year were under the age of 18. We didn't see those kind of numbers. Well, it's actually more than that now. By counter-terrorism police in the last 12 months, 1 in 5 are now. So we're up to 20%. Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely extraordinary. It is mental. That was much higher than we were seeing. I also picked up the fact that Josh talked about the fact that this was back in 2017, after we'd had that horrendous year, I was trying to make a pitch to both government and MI5 that the extreme right-wing threat into terrorism, so what was then called the far-right terrorism threat, was becoming a serious problem for the country, and we needed to do something very similar to what we were doing for Islamist jihadism on that. I noticed this was quite very concerning what Josh has said. I think everyone's accepted that far right has become, for some minority, an extreme right-wing threat, and we've got a terrorist problem in that space. That is being, I have no doubt whatsoever, well looked at and well prosecuted by my successors and MI5. What Josh is now saying is that's become this problem of the internet sucking people in, showing them some incredibly horrific stuff. I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about what you saw. But showing them that is spread across all kinds of ideologies. And this is what we were beginning to see probably at the end of 2019, where we couldn't really understand what these kids were looking at and why. It wasn't immediately apparent that they wanted to be a Nazi or they wanted to be an Islamist. or they wanted jihad. It wasn't immediately apparent. What was apparent was they wanted to be violent.
Well, he did show me some of the content, and it was truly shocking stuff. I don't think, I can't imagine anyone else has seen this other than the counter-terrorism officers.
Given that you've had a go at my age, so I mean, you're an experienced, how can I put it, veteran crime correspondent.
Let's go with that.
But you are looking at that as basically a bloke in his 40s who can do a bit of critical thinking, kind of understand, can place in their mind what's right and wrong, and what's real and what isn't. And it's, I imagine, because I've seen this kind of stuff and it shocked me, and I'm a lot older than you, it's still horribly shocking.
Yeah.
How is a kid supposed to react to that?
This is exactly it. I mean, some of the images, I mean, it starts off where it's posted on openly available social media like TikTok and Snapchat, and it's effectively a form of grooming, and they're just using, these words where the language is interesting. You can do more. We will teach you. You can be someone. You can make a difference. All you have to do is join this chat, which is then moved to Telegram and other encrypted chat rooms.
Yeah,
and this is where the serious radicalizing is done, and this is where the bomb manuals are shared. This is where manuals about how to build 3D printing guns are shared. He talked about one case where a group of kids in the northeast, they actually found an actual 3D printed gun, and they were ready to use it, like a mass shooting.
I've been into the counter-terrorism policing headquarters we set up at the end of 2021. I've got a whole department specifically looking at, along, as Josh said, with the National Crime Agency about 3D printing and the accessibility of firearms through into the UK. But that methodology is what really interests me, the TikTok, Snapchat thing, because we were seeing a bit of that, but we were seeing some very low-level kind of introductions to people who immediately then went to encrypted platforms. What was so shocking about that interview was just how open this is on the open web. We think about the dark web and all these kind of sinister things we hear about. We'd never go near those.
I thought that's what I
But
said.
this is stuff you just pick up your phone in 30 seconds.
He said thousands and thousands of posts and material they identify every single month. And he said they're not even scratching the surface. So it must be hundreds of thousands of this toxic stuff being pumped out. Another post that he showed me was it was all based around Hitler and the Nazis and the killing of Jews and the burning of the Israeli flag. But it was kind of edited and done in a very kind of punchy way with music that would appeal to a young person, deliberately targeted at people on these social media platforms, which are, of course, very popular amongst these kids.
I thought you asked him a really interesting question about who's doing this, because what we were fighting back, just a few years ago, was the potential growth of new organised groups. And of course, when I say organised, they're actually relatively small numbers of people, like National Action and Patriotic Alternative. They were sort of between 50 and 100 members, but these are groups. It's an organisation with a name and with, in some cases with a uniform, trying to echo all of that 1930s far right, Third Reich nonsense. But it's much easier to break down a group like that. It's much easier to target people who are in charge. It's much easier to look at their ideology and their language and their propaganda and counter it. That's easy. What do you do if it's just some sinister bloke or woman sitting in their bedroom thinking, I tell you what, I can get a rise out of some very malleable, vulnerable young kids who don't know what they're doing, and I can provoke them.
Yeah, and he said that some of the people who are doing the radicalizing, who are pumping out this material, they don't even associate that with actually the end product of a kid potentially committing a terror attack. And let's dive into who is actually doing this. The counter-terror police refuse to go into that, but I've heard from a different source in the security services, and on open source you can find it if you look hard enough, that Russian white supremacist gangs are behind a lot of this. I'm sure, as a former head of counter-terrorism policing, that does not surprise you.
No, it doesn't at all. And Josh was a little bit equivocal around this, but he was actually very honest in saying, well, that's not my area of expertise. That's not what I do. That area of expertise is absolutely within the heart of MI5 and has become, post 2022, post my retirement, has become one of the number one priorities for the country's national security. So I remember Jeremy Fleming saying,
Jeremy Fleming?
Jeremy Fleming is the ex-Director General of GCHQ.
Yeah.
And he was editing the Radio 4 Today programme, so this is open source. I'm not selling out Jeremy's secrets here. And they asked him...
So let's not get Nick for breaching the national security.
No, let's definitely not. Particularly as I was one of the people who lobbied for it. It would be very embarrassing to be Nick.
That would be ironic, wouldn't it?
But he was basically saying what keeps him up at night more than any other single thing is the disinformation that is being spread, particularly by our enemies, hostile states, who are using that to further divide our country, to polarize, to make some of these views even more extreme and to try and get as many followers as possible. I am going a little bit deeper into what Jeremy was saying, but this is effectively the biggest problem facing us now, that if you look at some of our very technically proficient adversaries, Russia, China, Iran, these are people who have warehousefuls of kids who are effectively generating massive amounts of material and then using chatbots and to effectively disseminate this across the World Wide Web. And that is a massive problem for all of us.
Now, the obvious question when you're looking at this issue is the role of social media companies.
Oh, dear. We haven't got long enough on this podcast.
I know. Let's keep it brief then. But I asked Josh. He refused to answer as a police officer, but he said he would answer as a parent. And he said that absolutely they should be doing more, given the nature of, all this material being pumped out on such a industrial scale. Yeah. What do you reckon?
Well, I think that's absolutely true, and I've publicly said this before. My predecessor, Mark Rowley, the current commissioner, has said it extensively. We have a problem because we have to work with them, so there's no point baiting them. I mean, they've got to become partners in this fight, and I think they've tried for a very long time to say a couple of things. One is technically it's very difficult for us to do, and for that, and sometimes they said it's impossible for us to do what you want us to do, law enforcement. I don't believe either of those two things. These are the trillion-dollar companies that have all the expertise, all the genius, and all the resources to come up with a solution. What you've got in Josh's unit in New Scotland Yard, you've effectively got something called the Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit. So Josh spoke as a parent, I'll speak as an ex-cop, ex-head of CT and a parent, is that unit relies on the self-reporting of the public when they come across stuff.
School teachers, that type of stuff.
What we get from our investigations. And as you've correctly said, that is the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there are many, many more millions of hits and more of that kind of filth that you were looking at than we could possibly ever cope with. So the only way it can be taken down is if somebody with some technical expertise manages to find it, preferably before it's even posted, before it's even capable of being downloaded. And that was the Holy Grail. That's what we were searching for. But we were coming up time and time again with social media companies saying, we can't do that. It's technically not possible, by which they meant it's too expensive for our business model. But not a single one of the big six, who are all American companies, not a single one of those wants this kind of stuff. It's the publicity is horrific for them. If they get it, their advertisers want to pull their advertising. So that's the leverage. The leverage is not so much in the Online Safety Act and governments outlawing this stuff. It's advertisers saying, I don't want to advertise on a platform that allows this kind of stuff. And then listen to what Josh said as a parent. I mean, how my kids are in their mid-20s. They understand a little bit about critical thinking. I hope we've raised them correctly from right or wrong. So my kids have probably escaped this. But the generation below my kids, the teenagers, I've never heard of an 11-year-old before in my whole time
11 years
in
old.
policing.
That really shocked me.
Absolutely. Those kind of things were, if you remember the Jamie Bolger case years ago, that sort of 10, 11 was so rare, so rare. I mean, that's just...
They were also shocking. Looking into an 8-year-old who was referred to prevent. It didn't kind of cross the threshold of prosecution, but that just shows you the ages involved.
Obviously, he couldn't be prosecuted because under 10, it's not a criminal offence for anybody. And they've been talking about raising, not necessarily, but medics are basically saying having a criminal age of responsibility of 10 is ridiculous, because right and wrong, kids are not capable of understanding the nuance of the law and right and wrong until at least 14. We're talking about having a voting age in this country of 16. medical professionals are saying actually criminal age of responsibility is too low at 10, should be 40.
Well,
it's all getting a little bit
this,
close.
This story has proved that it's not. Interestingly, I've just had an email through from Snapchat. I obviously asked for a comment. They said the safety of young people on Snapchat is paramount, and we strictly prohibit content that promotes hate, terrorism, and violent extremism. Our safety teams take quick action on violating content, and we regularly engage with UK police. There you go.
Well, that's fantastic to know that Snapchat's doing that. That is a big leap forward from 4 years ago where I was. So we were putting a lot of pressure on those companies to actually cooperate. I think, and as I've said, a lot of them want to. I mean, it's no reputable company thinks that this is good. Yeah. I mean, when you talked about them being, the people, the radicalisers, the extremists online who are trying to get this stuff online, pulling them into unregulated platforms who don't care about this kind of stuff, where end-to-end encryption mean we can't see it, that's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. But I'd rather that was happening than it was easy to exist on a platform like Facebook.
Yeah, I just think the accusation which is thrown at them time and time again, which is you should be monitoring it more carefully, it just simply isn't happening, obviously. Anyway, I think we should move on now. In the last part of today's episode, we're going to be asking, is free speech under threat in the UK? Is Britain really becoming like North Korea? Well, that's what some people, such as Nigel Farage, have claimed in light of Graham Linehan's, that's the Father Ted writer, his recent arrest at Heathrow. So, is he right? That's coming up after this. Last week, Neil, we saw the writer of one of my favourite comedy shows, Father Ted, Graham Linehan, arrested at Heathrow Airport. It felt a bit like overkill to have 5 firearms officers waiting for him to step off the plane.
I'm slightly worried that your love of that show may have clouded your judgment or your objectivity. I happen to be a massive Father Ted fan as well.
It's great.
So, and that's what caught my eye in the byline, that it was a Father Ted writer.
Yeah.
Obviously, you and I are very experienced at this. We don't discuss individuals, particularly individuals who are facing a court date and have been charged in a separate offence. That's sub judice. Talking about the way the arrest happened, there's probably a couple of things. So what did you think about Nigel Farage's comments about we're becoming like North Korea?
Well, I said the word overkill in my intro there. I would apply that word to that as well.
I think, God bless Mr. Farage, but I mean, comparing a Labour government in 2025 to a military junta autocratic dictatorship, I mean, he should probably go and spend a little time in North Korea if he thinks that's what we're becoming.
Yeah. Why don't you come back to us after that?
Yeah, slightly, if you can, obviously, if you can get out. But that might solve an awful lot of problems for this government, mightn't it? But what I'd say is, no, I don't.
Going to get us in trouble here.
I don't think we're anywhere near that. I mean, when I read all of this, I thought, aviation policing used to come under my watch. What those people do is incredibly difficult in that environment. They're all armed, or the vast majority of aviation police
right.
officers
So it's
are
not
armed
like
at the
all officers there are armed. So it's not like we're sending firearms officers.
The vast majority are armed.
Well,
there are small community teams, but the vast majority are armed. That doesn't mean they pull their weapons out when they arrest people. They're there for, obviously, to defend the public against a terrorist attack. That's why they're there. So, but sending 5 onto a plane, with an individual who's voluntarily returning to the UK. This is not an argument about whether the offence that he allegedly committed or whether he should have been arrested or not. There are ways to do this kind of thing, and it would have been equally possible to have invited this person in for an interview. It was
that usually happens with low-level cases like this one, which it really is.
Or also with high-profile people who are likely to attract an awful lot of publicity and attention. You have to say, what is proportionate? If you're going to arrest somebody in that manner, are you doing it because there's a safety issue, both for the police arresting or for the public during the arrest? The answer to that is probably not. So this becomes disproportionate, and then it becomes a spectacle. And then all of a sudden, policing is front page news for being authoritarian, and then you get people who like to cause a great deal of melodrama, like Nigel Farage, using it to say ridiculous things about the country. I mean, I think chief constables need to be, and the commissioner need to be very, very careful about how they are instructing their people to behave, where somebody is likely to use that arrest to put themselves on the front page and articulate their cause, if you like, through the media. Something which you guys would jump on in a heartbeat, wouldn't you? So, of course you would. It's great news. It's great news. So.
Speaking of stirring the pot, your old mate, the head of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Mark Rowley, he's had his say on this, and he said that the government, well, he's called on the government to change or clarify the law following that arrest. And he said he recognised concern caused by such incidents, given differing perspectives on the balance between free speech, there's those words again, and the risks of inciting violence in the real world.
Well,
that's kind of a loaded statement, right?
Yeah, it is a loaded statement, and he is my old mate, and he is absolutely right. What is very unusual about that is I cannot remember the last time a commissioner or a chief constable went out publicly lobbying for a change in the law, and that's effectively what that is.
Yeah,
that's very rare.
And then after that, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, said that police must focus on the most serious issues after that. Again, another loaded statement.
And it sounded like the lobbying was working in public. But I remember, I think I heard Wes Streeting on the radio say the Labour attack line soundbite for this is streets, not tweets. So why are police wasting their time? It's very, it's another classic little piece of politics which doesn't really help the issue.
Yeah.
Because, of course, what if the tweets really do break the law? We've just watched Josh tell us that there are real-world consequences for stuff you put online. That you can actually provoke people to extreme violence, even murder. So streets, not tweets, that's a great soundbite, but actually it's way too simplistic for what you're facing.
Do you reckon that this, again, the commissioner coming out like this, do you think he's also hinting at the Palestine Action issue? Because we've just seen a record amount of arrests last weekend, nearly 900, 890 arrests at another one of these protests, and that's added to the more than 500 we had in August.
Well, if he's not hinting at it, I'd like to hear what his view is on it. And I think wading into that debate is going to be very difficult. But I think what he's trying to say
is help.
With both of these is help. Yeah, is help. Because actually and Wes Streeting was brilliant on this. He said, effectively, stop blaming the police for laws that we passed as parliamentarians elected by you, the public. Streeting is right. This is basically the laws of the land that police have to enforce are society's responsibility, not the police's, which is why chief officers don't normally lobby for law in public, because their job is to enforce them without fear or favour, politically, apolitically, without partisanship. Give them the laws and they will enforce them, and that's what you're seeing, and that's your point about Palestine Action. The law was changed by a Home Secretary who felt that Palestine Action should be prescribed as a terrorism group, leaving police no option but where someone is supporting that group than to arrest. And as one of my relatives said to me, it's about time that policing realised that just following orders went out of fashion 60 years ago, which was very funny, and you know who you are, and I know you listen, which was very funny, but they're not. A frontline police officer is not in a position to use their discretion to ignore the law.
Well, listen, I've said this before. I know, obviously, public order cops, and I've been WhatsApping them about all this Palestine Action.
It's not their job to ignore the law.
They said it's a total nonsense, total waste of time. This isn't why I joined policing. It goes on and on and on. And you know what? We've been doing this podcast for quite a few weeks now. And this issue, Palestine Action, keeps cropping up time and time again.
It'll keep coming up until the trials are over, because that's when Yvette Cooper, as the Home Secretary who passed the prescription law, said...
No longer the Home Secretary.
No, but you'll hear stuff in those trials, and then people who are supporting Palestine Action will understand who they're supporting and why. Well... Yeah, the sooner that is made more transparent, the better.
I think it's
because this is getting ridiculous.
Well, it is getting ridiculous. Well, I think it's fair to say this is a bit of a PR disaster for the Home Office. This prescription.
It's a PR disaster for the Home Office. I hope it isn't becoming, but it clearly is, as my relatives have told me, becoming a PR disaster for policing. And they can't afford to let that happen. I do think that the people who are protesting don't realise what they're protesting for.
No.
But they're protesting a principle. I think many of them don't care about Palestine Action. Palestine Action are now a prescribed terrorist group.
Or if they knew more, they would.
Yeah, before they were a prescribed terrorist group, they were an active criminal group committing criminal damage. The idea is not that they're suddenly innocent and deserve to be supported. The idea is, could the criminal law have done enough?
Yeah.
Did you need to prescribe them? Well, we haven't yet heard the real reason.
And we can't
that.
go into those because, many of them are awaiting trial.
No,
it begs the question, why didn't they just wait till after the trials?
Absolutely. And what's hilarious is our brilliant producer guy was busily trying to tally the number of arrests that have been made under this new law. All three of us can't count, so we were really struggling. But we reckon it's over 1,400.
Yeah.
Now, I notice our new Home Secretary, Shabama Mahmood, will know exactly how many open spaces there are in our prison system if all 1,400 were prosecuted, charged, arrested and sentenced. I think we have about, if we're lucky, somewhere between 800 and 1,000 empty prison cells at any one point in time. You're going to fill them with these...
That's what they want, though. That's what Palestine Action want. That's their shtick. It's the same shtick as, Extinction Rebellion. They want to flood the criminal justice system as a matter of protest. That's what their protest is.
It's working, isn't it?
Well,
it's going to work because unless you either don't charge, you don't prosecute, and then that makes an ass of the law, and the law has to be changed, or you do prosecute, you do flood the system, and the system creaks and has to change. I mean, they're being effective. That's all you can say. Those protests are being effective.
It'll be interesting to see what the new Home Secretary does about this if she actually looks at this.
I'm sure we'll be talking about it.
Well,
very
I'm
shortly.
sure that's one of the things that led to this change. But we shall see, shall we not? That's it for this week. Thanks for listening to The Crime Agents. Make sure you've subscribed on Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode.
We'll be back with another main episode soon, and we'll have a Q&A episode for you on Monday. Remember, if you have any questions for us, and thank you very much for all the questions that have been coming in, and we're sorry we can't answer them all, please keep listening anyway. You never know, we might get round to it. Either about our own real-life experiences or maybe about something that's in the news and current today. Just keep sending them in and we'll answer them as soon as we can.
And you can send them by email to thecrimeagents@global.com or follow us on social media. We're at The Crime Agents on all major platforms, and you can also leave a question for us there. Well, that's it. Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.